Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Yeonni, and for today's video, I wanted to talk all about being a research coordinator. Some of you might know, some of you might not, but I was a social worker for a few years, and currently for about over a year now, I've been in a research coordinator role. So let me look at the list of things we'll be talking about, and hopefully YouTube does that thing where it on the bottom divides out all the different parts that I talk about. I find that really helpful. So first, we're going to talk about what is a research coordinator. 2, how did I get here? What is my research experience that has led me to be able to get a full-time paid job as a researcher? A lot of research roles are unpaid, they're internships, but we'll talk about that a bit more. 3, what was a transition like as someone who was in a social worker role, transitioning into a researcher role? We'll talk about that. 4th, we'll talk about what do I do as a researcher. Obviously, depending on the lab that you work in, the participants that you work with, it might all look different, but I'll let you know about the setting that I work in and the type of work that I do. There is a lot of overlap under the umbrella of research coordinator and what research coordinators do. And then lastly, I wanted to finish off the video by talking about why. Why do I do this work? What led me here? What are my motivations? And yeah, so I tried to organize this video as much as possible, so I hope you find this video helpful, if not just interesting to listen to. But before we get into the video, I just wanted to say hi, my name is Yeonni, and I am a mental health professional making videos here on YouTube on my weekends after a long week of work. I make videos on social work, social justice, mental health, psychology, advice, lifestyle. I just really make videos on whatever I feel like making at the end of the day. If you are new here, I hope you do check out my channel and my other videos, and if you like what you see, please make sure to subscribe and join my small corner of the internet. That would be awesome. I make videos every Sunday, once a week, so I'll be here. Hopefully you'll be here. And with all that said, let's get straight into the video. So first things first, what is a research coordinator? So, a research coordinator plans, implements, and maintains maintains data collection and analysis systems in support of research protocol. So a research coordinator may coordinate the collection and analysis of research data. They may recruit, instruct, and coordinate research subjects and or volunteers as appropriate to specific study objectives and work scope. So specific, but also kind of vague, right? That conveys that as a research coordinator, your day-to-day might look very different. The type of people that you work with may look very different. The scope of your responsibilities may look very different. So that is just kind of the umbrella definition of what is a research coordinator. So how did I get here? So my first foot in the door when it comes to research experience was actually when I was an undergrad. I was part of an honors program in undergrad, and in that honors program there was an opportunity for me to do things kind of like out of the scope of the classroom setting. I loved this program. So for 2 semesters, I was able to train and become like a college mentor to some middle school kids at a local middle school. It was just kind of being like a mentor figure of like local college students going into this middle school to help maybe like underrepresented students feel more confident about their academics, empower them, encourage them to pursue higher education if that's what they wanted, and like let them know that they can do it. The second 2 semesters of that program, we were able to partner up with local nonprofits and agencies to conduct research for them. So for us, we would get class credit and experience, and for them, they get students, and we were able to help them with whatever they were needing. So I was able to partner with the local recycling initiative. I found it fascinating because I was like, oh, I didn't even know there was a recycling initiative nonprofit. And they were like a board that would meet once a month and talk about how the city is tackling recycling and what can we learn from like other municipalities. Myself and another college student were brought on to do literature research to gather data on how other municipalities were handling recycling initiatives, and how are we doing compared to other municipalities? What can we learn from them? So that was the first time I stepped into research. I found it really fun just doing the research part, gathering data, and I'm kind of a dork. I enjoy writing papers, so finding all that data, putting it into this huge proposal that we were actually going to present to city council, it was such a cool experience. In kind of like the monotonous day-to-day as a college student, going to classes, coming back to the dorm, dorm, going to classes, you know, there's exams, there's papers. I felt like the studying and the education I was doing was actually helping my community, and maybe that was like the plant, like the seed that was planted in me that led me to social work. It felt cool to use the education that I was getting to help the city and the municipality that I was in. So that was my first foot in the door of research. It was really fun. We got like a service award for the proposal that we wrote for city council, and they actually implemented a lot of changes through the research that we did. So I was like, that's so cool. To be able to present that to city council, to be able to affect positive change through my work, I was like, this feels really cool. I want more of this. And that ignited this search for more research opportunities. And then fast forward to being at NYU to pursue my master's degree in social work. I had gotten federal work study as a part of my finance packet to go to NYU, because NYU is not a cheap school. So I was just looking at the work study opportunities list. If you have work study in school, there's a website you can go to see who is hiring around the university. And I came across a professor who was doing poverty studies research in the Philippines, which was really, really cool. And he was looking for a graduate research assistant that could work for him and helping him with literature reviews, analyzing the data that was collected abroad. When his research team went to the Philippines, they had recorded a lot of these interviews, had transcribed them. So my job was to look at the transcriptions and see patterns. You know, if you think about it, it's just data kind of all over the place, right? In between, like, pleasantries and niceties, someone mentioning, oh, like water supply has been low. Okay, mention of water. And then like 3 days later, they go to this other person in like a different town, and like they're not having water issues, but it seems these people in this town seem to be struggling with getting like a steady flow of water. So that's really the data analysis part, where you're noticing patterns and things. And then so it was my job to, you know, scavenge through all of these transcriptions of the interviews of these citizens of this town in the Philippines, and then try to see how poverty affects all aspects of these people's lives when it comes to, you know, physical health, like water supply, quality of the water, women's health. Poverty affects everything, like every part of people's lives. So I felt that the work was super meaningful, and I was able to put together spreadsheets and, you know, really organize this data so that my PI, that's the term that you'll become very familiar with. The PI is the principal investigator, the professor who's gotten the grant or the permission from whatever review board and the money from whatever source, usually federal sources or like large institutions like the NIAAA. I put all this information together in a nice way so that the PI, the professor that I'm working for, can look at it and kind of write up papers, do presentations, whatever he needs to do. So support his research in that sense. And then after that, I was like, this is so cool. But then of course I dove deep into my work as a social worker, because that's really what my focus was at the time, to become a clinician. So I kind of put my research interest aside. For 3.5 years, I worked as a social worker. And then about a year and a few months ago, in late 2020, is when I started my full-time paid clinical research coordinator role at my new place. So now let's talk about the transition that I experienced going from a clinical social worker role to a clinical research coordinator role. This is like a whole video in itself, or it should be. So if you would like that, if you want me to go more into detail of what it's been like, I can do that for you. Just let me know. It's a lot, and I enjoy making videos, as you should already know if you're a subscriber of mine. Just putting it clearly, it wasn't too difficult. I think that's just my I've been here for over a year, so I think I can say that now. It wasn't too bad, the transition. If anything, I felt very welcomed into the research team, and my clinical background, working as a social worker, working as a therapist, and just working with people, was really welcomed, and it was a big asset of my application when I applied to this job. And honestly, it makes sense. This research study is studying people, and I happen to work with said people for a long period of time in a clinical setting where I am super finely attuned to their mental health, to their body language, to cues of the words that they're saying. And a lot of the times researchers are not trained clinically. So when there's like a mental health crisis, or when you deliver really sensitive questions. Me being a social worker and having had the training and the experience, I felt more confident. But if I would mention one difficult thing about the transition, was the fact that I'm no longer a clinician in my interactions with this population, but a researcher. Just reminding myself that I'm not there to provide treatment. It took a little bit of time for adjustment. That's been a bit hard because I'm so like just used to when someone tells me they're going through something, it was my job to help them feel heard, validated, work with them to, you know, gather tools to get them through those struggles, but not as a researcher. So through my day-to-day interactions, I can obviously be kind, respectful, and show them that their time matters, and I try to do as much as that as possible, but when I'm collecting data, it has to be impartial, objective, and just gather the data. Let me lower the blinds for a second. All right, let's talk about what do I do as a researcher. As a researcher, one of my main roles is recruitment. I make phone calls, I put up flyers in community grocery stores, we do online recruiting for online ads on Facebook, Instagram. We need to get participants to be a part of our study. Without participants, who are we studying, right? So a lot of the researcher role is recruitment, making phone calls, following up with people, getting them in the door. And then once they're in the door, then you do the data collection. So as a researcher, I meet with participants twice a week. I ask them interview questions about what the scope of my study is, and then I do cognitive tests with them. So the data collection part is meeting with participants, collecting their data. Another thing that we do in the scope of the current research position that I have is we also collect samples. So I collect samples from my participants as well. And then once all of this is collected, I do the data organizing and analyzing. So organizing is, you know, running samples. I get the sample in my hand, I put it into our fancy expensive machine, and then I press the buttons. Obviously it's a bit more complicated than that, but I get the numbers that I need from whatever that sample was, and then I put that into our database where all the data is, and we do cognitive tests. I extract that from our cognitive testing machine, put it into the database, all under the chart of this participant. I do data cleaning, double check, triple check to make sure as I'm extracting and inputting data, everything is clean. There's no loose numbers or blank spots anywhere. If there is a blank spot, some sort of note on why is that blank, participant refused to answer this question, da 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 da. When it comes to the PI or like the postdoc researchers who need all this data in the future, they know exactly what happened in those visits through my notes. That's really like my list of responsibilities as a research coordinator. But if you're in the role, or if you plan to be in the role, you'll realize that that's not all you do as a research coordinator. You do a lot. So in the grand scope of the lab, I also work with the IRB, which is the Institution Review Board of the school that I work for. And then what that means is, since it's a human subjects research study, you work with people. The IRB exists to make sure that our interactions with participants are ethical and humane. So anytime we have a change in protocol, like now we want to ask 5 questions about this thing as opposed to 3. We have to get those extra questions reviewed by the IRB. I do that for my lab and interact with them. You'll do a lot of other roles in labs as a research coordinator. So there's a lot of time management that's necessary, a lot of juggling of tasks. All right, and now last but not least, let's talk about why I'm doing this. Why did I quit my social work job to become a researcher? Well, as I've already kind of explained in this video already, I've always been interested in research. It's been really cool to, you know, contribute to society in a different type of way through research, and looking at and collecting data and analyzing data has always been really interesting to me. But yeah, obviously it would be a lie if I said I enjoy this work more than being a clinician. If I had to choose, I do miss my social work job quite a lot. I miss being able to form those deeper connections with my patients. But being completely transparent with you, I'm at this full-time paid clinical research coordinator role because I'm applying to graduate schools. If you are interested in graduate school, PhD specifically, and more specifically psychology PhD programs, you will need to have research experience. Depending on the kind of PhD, counseling psychology versus clinical psychology PhD, clinical psychology PsyD, the emphasis on research experience may differ, but having research experience in general is very, very, very important to your candidacy if you're interested in applying for these schools, which is why when I moved to Seattle, I knew that while I'll also be applying to social work jobs, I really prioritize my applications to research roles because I knew that I wanted to spend an intensive time, full time doing research to get as much as I can out of it when it comes to experience, learning, but also to boost up my application for grad school. So that's why I'm here. It's been a journey for sure. And I feel very, very lucky to have found a paid clinical research coordinator role, because research coordinators are extremely underpaid if they are paid. But in general, it is very difficult to find paid research coordinator roles. A lot of the times it's not fair, it's not right, but people know that there's a lot of like PhD and grad school hopefuls who would do anything they can to get the research experience, so they take advantage of that. So there's a little bit of a heads up there. I believe that's it for my video on being a clinical research coordinator, all the details of how I got here, what I do, and da-da-da-da. If you have any specific questions about things I might not have addressed in my video, please let me know in the comments down below. With that said, please like this video if you liked it, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. And yeah, I hope you guys are taking care of yourselves emotionally, physically, mentally, in all of those important ways, especially in the times that we're living in. And I hope to see you in my very next video. Bye!